Welcome back to Book Summaries channel. Have you ever wondered if happiness is just a stroke of luck, or if it's something you can actually train your brain to achieve? Today, we are exploring the timeless wisdom of The Art of Happiness by the Dalai Lama and Dr. Howard Cutler, a guide that blends Eastern spiritual practice with Western psychology to show you that peace is within your reach. In this opening chapter, the Dalai Lama establishes the fundamental premise that the very purpose of our life is to seek happiness. He argues that happiness is not a luxury or a byproduct of external circumstances, but a definitive goal that every human being has a right to pursue. Unlike the common Western view that happiness is fleeting, he describes it as a state that can be cultivated through deliberate practice. The Dalai Lama suggests that whether we are religious or not, we all share the same desire for contentment and the avoidance of suffering. He clarifies that true happiness is distinct from momentary pleasure, which is often tied to sensory experiences. By identifying the factors that lead to satisfaction, we can begin to organize our lives around them. This chapter encourages us to take our mental well-being seriously as a disciplined pursuit. It sets the stage for shifting our focus from outer wealth to inner development. Ultimately, the quest for happiness is what gives our lives meaning and direction. This chapter explores where happiness actually comes from, contrasting internal mental states with external conditions. The Dalai Lama explains that while basic needs are important, once they are met, more wealth or status does not significantly increase happiness. He points out that humans have a remarkable ability to adapt to new situations, meaning the high of a promotion or a new car eventually fades. Therefore, true lasting happiness must be rooted in one's mental outlook rather than one's bank account or social standing. He emphasizes the importance of inner discipline as the primary source of a happy life. By identifying and eliminating negative mental states and nurturing positive ones, we can transform our experience of the world. Happiness is more a matter of the mind than of the circumstances. We are encouraged to stop looking for contentment in objects and start looking within our own consciousness. This shift in perspective is the first major step toward emotional freedom. Cultivating a stable mind allows us to remain happy even when external conditions become difficult. The Dalai Lama describes the mind as a garden that requires constant tending and cultivation. He introduces the concept that happiness is an art because it requires study, practice, and patience to master. Training the mind involves a systematic process of identifying which thoughts and emotions are harmful and which are beneficial. We must learn to consciously move away from destructive patterns like anger and greed toward constructive ones like compassion and patience. This is not a quick fix, but a lifelong commitment to mental hygiene. The chapter explains that our brain's pathways can actually be reshaped through consistent effort and meditation. By repeatedly choosing positive responses, we make them our new default state. The Dalai Lama stresses that spiritual transformation is a gradual process of learning and habituation. It requires a clear understanding of how our emotions work and the determination to change them. Through this training, we gain the ability to stay calm in the face of life's inevitable storms. In this chapter, the focus shifts to human relationships and the nature of connection. The Dalai Lama challenges the Western obsession with romantic love as the sole source of intimacy. He proposes a broader model of intimacy based on a sense of universal connection to all human beings. By recognizing that everyone wants to be happy and avoid suffering, we can feel close to anyone, not just a few select people. This approach reduces the pressure on single relationships to fulfill all our emotional needs. He argues that true intimacy comes from vulnerability and a genuine concern for others' well-being. Building relationships on the basis of shared humanity creates a much more stable foundation than physical attraction or personal gain. The Dalai Lama encourages us to open our hearts to a wider circle of friends and even strangers. This expansive view of love leads to a profound sense of belonging and social support. It helps us overcome the epidemic of loneliness that plagues modern society. Building on the previous chapter, this section looks at the practical ways to strengthen our bonds with the world. The Dalai Lama emphasizes that as social animals, our survival and happiness are dependent on others. He suggests that we often focus on the differences between ourselves and others, which leads to isolation and conflict. Instead, we should actively look for commonalities, such as our shared biological needs and emotional experiences. Compassion is presented as the most powerful tool for deepening these connections. When we approach others with an attitude of kindness, they naturally respond in kind, creating a positive feedback loop. This chapter also discusses the importance of honest communication and the willingness to see things from another's perspective. By reducing our self-centeredness, we actually become more attractive and likable to those around us. Genuine concern for others is not just a moral virtue. It is a practical strategy for personal happiness. Helping others is, in fact, the most effective way to help ourselves. Compassion is defined here as a state of mind that is nonviolent, non-aggressive, and based on the wish for others to be free from suffering. The Dalai Lama argues that compassion is not a religious matter, but a biological necessity for human health. Scientific evidence is discussed to show that compassionate people have lower stress levels and stronger immune systems. He explains that compassion is actually the ultimate source of success in life because it fosters trust and cooperation. It allows us to relate to others without fear or defensiveness, which opens up many opportunities. The chapter distinguishes between biased compassion, which we feel for friends, and unbiased compassion, which extends to everyone. Developing this universal compassion provides a deep sense of inner strength and resilience. It acts as an internal buffer against the negativity of others. By making compassion our primary motivation, we find an inexhaustible source of energy and purpose. It is the most direct path to a meaningful and joyful existence. The Dalai Lama addresses the reality that suffering is an inevitable part of the human experience. He suggests that much of our unhappiness comes from our attempt to avoid or deny the existence of pain. By accepting that problems, illness, and death are natural, we can reduce the secondary suffering caused by resistance and anxiety. This chapter teaches us how to change our attitude toward adversity by seeing it as an opportunity for growth. Suffering can serve as a powerful teacher that helps us develop empathy and inner strength. The Dalai Lama encourages us to reflect on the nature of suffering during times of peace, so we are prepared when it arrives. He notes that even in the most difficult circumstances, we still have the freedom to choose our internal response. Acceptance does not mean being passive, but rather having a clear-eyed view of reality. This shift in perspective transforms suffering from a meaningless burden into a catalyst for transformation. It allows us to face life with courage instead of fear. This chapter identifies the specific mental poisons that block our path to happiness: anger, hatred, and craving. The Dalai Lama explains that these negative emotions cloud our judgment and damage our physical health. He provides practical antidotes for each state, such as using patience to counter anger and contentment to counter greed. He emphasizes that we cannot simply will these emotions away. We must understand their causes and logical fallacies. For example, realizing that anger only hurts ourselves more than the other person can help us let it go. The goal is not to suppress emotions, but to transform the underlying mental environment. This requires constant self-awareness and the willingness to challenge our own reactive tendencies. The Dalai Lama suggests that we should treat negative emotions like intruders in our house rather than part of our identity. Over time, as we cultivate positive counterforces, the obstacles naturally lose their power over us. Perseverance in this practice eventually leads to a state of emotional stability. a deep dive into the most destructive of human emotions. This chapter offers a masterclass on dealing with rage. The Dalai Lama argues that anger is never truly useful and always leaves a trail of destruction in its wake. He refutes the idea that venting anger is healthy, suggesting instead that it only reinforces the habit of being angry. The primary antidote to anger is the development of patience and tolerance. He encourages us to see those who frustrate us as precious teachers who give us the chance to practice these virtues. By slowing down our reactions, we create space for reason and compassion to intervene. The chapter also discusses the importance of forgiveness as a way to release the burden of past hurts. Holding on to hatred is compared to carrying a hot coal with the intent of throwing it at someone else. You are the one who gets burned. Choosing peace over being right is a sign of great inner power. Ultimately, overcoming anger is the ultimate act of self-care. The final chapter addresses the modern struggles of low self-worth and chronic worry. The Dalai Lama suggests that much of our anxiety stems from an overactive imagination and a lack of focus on the present moment. He provides a balanced view of self-esteem, distinguishing between healthy self-confidence and destructive ego. True self-confidence is based on a realistic assessment of one's abilities and a sense of shared humanity. He warns against comparing oneself to others, as this always leads to either pride or inferiority. The chapter also discusses the importance of being honest about our limitations while remaining compassionate toward ourselves. By realizing our innate potential for goodness, we can overcome feelings of worthlessness. He encourages us to trust in our ability to learn and change, no matter our past. The Dalai Lama concludes by reminding us that happiness is a skill that anyone can learn with effort and time. Peace is not a destination, but a way of traveling through life. He leaves us with the message that every day is a new chance to practice the art of being happy.